Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love, where we gather to explore the curiosities of every day and think about how spirituality is working for us and through us. And today we have a really special guest, Cathy Gabrielsen. I always stumble on names, it's so funny. And it's part of my self-compassion. Um, she is a spirit of joy, and I've just enjoyed getting to meet her behind the scenes and our connections of, just higher consciousness and light and love. And so she's a really outstanding guest for Life of Love, and I'm honored to have her. She has had a path. I'm going to let her share the exciting things that she's gone through, her journeys, and just absorb what she's bringing us today because it's such a gift. And so, without further ado, welcome Cathy to Life of Love. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Julie. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Like
On
I
Life-
said, it's my honor. Yeah. So, I was telling you about that movie Near Death. I'm sorry. I was telling you about that movie After Death. And
Yeah.
it's the new Angel Studios production. It came out in theaters the end of October. But even though you haven't seen it, you've been in this realm, right? And you've actually written two books about your near death experiences. So it's just such a great blessing to get to talk to somebody who's seen beyond the veil. So that's a really big reason of why I was drawn to you and your energy. So oh my gosh, can you? I mean, I don't want you to have to recap both of your near death experiences, but what do you like to share with people to like to bring them into your reality? Like, what's a snapshot of having a near death experience? And let's
Oh,
just start there.
oh man. Well, the first time I had a near-death experience, I was only 18. And I was raised, in a very conservative Catholic family. Wonderful upbringing, really connected to, Mary and the saints. But it was also, the whole worthy thing, I'm not divine, I'm not, a holy or blessed person, And so when I had my first experience, after being in a really serious car accident, and I knew that I had had this experience, couldn't tell anybody. I was just, that was really hard,
Hmm.
not feeling worthy to have received that incredible blessing of being in the light. But now I've learned completely opposite, that we are divine, that we are holy, that we can be blessed, we can be saints, all these great things. Um, and so it was really, I realized after I had the near death experiences that I needed to share the message of what it's like in the light. And most importantly, how I was living. I wasn't living the way that I should have been living. They were just reminders to me of how really to live. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow. So that was the 18, or then when was your next one?
Yeah.
I don't want to jump. I'm not glossing over the first one. I'm just
No, no.
curious.
So the
Time
first one,
stamp.
I said I was in a really bad car accident, and I was in it. We were driving on an old windy road, and my boyfriend and I at the time he went off the road and down to a big ditch, and we went deep into the ditch and kind of in the mud, and everything was smashed. The car was all smashed. There was no windows. I don't even think there was a door. And my boyfriend at the time he was moaning, and he only said a couple of things. He asked if I was okay, and then he said he needed help. And that was it. And we were in the car what felt like an eternity, because we were just in this mud bank. And I was alone, and I was scared, and I was just drawn to the sky. I was just drawn to look up. Maybe it was the stars, but then there was just a pull, like a really strong pull to be there. Um, and then I was there, and it was really powerful. And I remember seeing beings and spirits, and it was like they were having conversations about me, kind of like I was like, "What are you guys talking about? I'm right here." Um, but I just realized and was really guided to know that it was not my time, and I had to come back. And then when I came back from that near death experience, I became a minister. All I wanted to do was be in church. I wanted to be healing. I wanted to be helping people. And then I had a second near death experience. after a surgery related to my breast cancer, and I had
Mhm.
sepsis and then was bleeding internally. Now that was a totally different story because I guess I didn't get the message the first go around, so then they brought me back again, and I really believe that that was the case. Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, so I want to
The second near death was way more, it was longer, it
Yeah.
was more of an experience. It was like the experience of really dying, of hovering over my bed, of going in and out of the light. So that was a much and what I learned in that near death experience were that there are degrees of glory in heaven, and that, there's levels that and spirit that we can be with, and that was a really good that was good to know. That's really good to know.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Well, first of all, I mean, you're not the only one who's felt like they couldn't talk about it. Like,
Hmm.
and that was what the cool thing about the After Death movie was, that that was a commonality, that the Atlanta cardiologist went and interviewed all these people, and they're like, well, I couldn't tell anybody because they think I was crazy. And, it's like, and like you said, we, as being brought up Catholic, you're supposed to, the Mary is teaching us to be, what the agenda that's taught is that you're subservient, that you're quiet, you're not boastful, you're not showy, you're there to support and unconditional love, which is beautiful, but it's not a very empowering message of Mary, which I don't know if you can tell because you read energy, and Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, those are my girls, like,
Oh, you're talking, I mean, she's my
yeah.
girl, look, I got it right here. She's by my side every day, and I truly believe that she saved me. I truly believed in my second near death, that she brought me to the light, and she also sent me, like, I truly believe that she filled me, because when I was bleeding internally and my lungs were filling up with blood, I was, battling sepsis and had a surgery, and I kept saying, "Holy Spirit, fill me with your light." And, I believe she is the Holy Spirit. And I truly believe that she really saved me that night.
Mhm.
Um,
That's the message. I always get this empowerment that you're divine, that you're worthy, and I just got chills down the side of my body when you were telling me that she filled you up,
yeah.
that
Mhm.
she wanted to give you this download, like you were following the ministry, you were doing things, but I think she wanted to tell you had another level, you could level up, and to
Yeah.
let you know there's another level.
Yeah. She
So
did.
wow.
Yeah, no, I truly believe my death was a message, like I said, how to live. I've always had that yearning, I felt a calling when to service and to God when I was in, 6 years old, when I was, sitting at my desk, and the nuns were saying, pray for your vocation and calling. And I was like, please don't, and I knew I was being called, but I just want to be a mom. I don't
Just
want
want
to
to be a
be
normal person, right?
a
Like,
normal
just let me
person.
be normal.
But I remember, and she said, "You'll hear it in your heart." And I remember hearing it. I remember that day very vividly. But I spent the majority of my life helping other people, but just not living in alignment with my own needs and wants and spirit. And I needed to learn how to do that. And she was very instrumental in helping me, and has been.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
I mean, your website's amazing. I encourage anyone to go there. But I picked up a flavor of you're not only helping yourself and being a spiritual leader, but you also are helping other people who are struggling with their near death experiences. And so,
Yeah.
tell me, do you talk to a lot of people, or are there commonalities with your seeing going to the light and theirs? Are you able to get stories of other people too? And how are you helping them deal with what they went through? Because there definitely is a reacclimation. Like you get to that light, and I understand it's just so unconditional, and a lot
Yeah.
of people don't even want to come back. I mean, it's like you have to go back.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, when my second near death experience, it was like I was welcomed home, and I was kind of high-fiving all my family, and all of a sudden I see all the saints that I've prayed to, and I'm seeing all the angels, and I'm hearing the seraphim singing, and then I see Jesus, and he's saying, I see Mary, but he kept shaking his head and put me in his arms, and
oh,
I knew I had to come home. But I was like, I understood. I needed to heal other people, but I couldn't heal people until was able to really heal myself and get back in touch with my divine self, with the divinity within me, the power to heal. And I had to work on my heart, and I did. And I love to work in the near death community and speak and go to the IANS events and stuff, because they really are so helpful. When people have a near death experience, they have a trauma that
Mm-hmm.
leads to the near death experience, whether it's an accident, abuse, an illness, a disease, and it's healing, coming back, but coming back and being rejected by the light because you're coming home, but also healing the trauma of having the experience. And some
Mm-hmm.
people, I had my first near death was different from my second. They're all very similar, but there's also people that have not had really beautiful, blissful experiences. They've had really dark, they've gone to different places than I went. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yes, that's what's in
yeah,
the movie. And I was like,
yeah, yeah.
whoa, yeah. The one
But
guy was getting bitten by demons. Like he was fighting them. He didn't want to be there. And they were grabbing and pulling at him. And he's like, they started biting me.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
do believe that eventually you would get to the light. I do believe that
Mhm.
eventually the dark will turn to the light. I do believe. I've always believed that. Um, uh, I do. And
Yeah.
I've heard a number uh, of those stories, and they're unsettling. But in the end,
Mhm.
the light will prevail. Yeah.
Yeah, that was there were two in the movie. I don't want to ruin the movie for you or anyone
What
else.
was his? What was his emotional state like before he went to the dark?
He he was giving up on life.
Yeah.
He
Hmm.
was trying to overdose.
Hmm.
And then the other one who had a negative experience, he wasn't living his best life. He wasn't being true to his family. He wasn't giving his all. He was living in what we like to call complete ego, like
Hmm.
just living my material life and just checking off boxes basically.
Hmm.
And when they both one called out to Jesus and one called out to God, and immediately their situation was changed from
Yeah. Yeah.
falling. Both of them had experience of dark falling,
Yeah.
like sinking
But but
deeply.
but they but the light came in, but then light ended up coming for them.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what the wild thing is. We don't hear from somebody who who didn't who kept going to the dark. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
as we don't hear from someone who keeps going to the light and gets all the way to heaven and it doesn't come back. Like all we have,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, there's so many people who don't share their story. So I don't, like, I guess anything's possible, but I would
Yeah.
I would hope that that people, if you're struggling with belief, to just hold on to the idea that you're a divine being and God put you here for a reason. And I know a lot of people have trouble believing in God. So, that's something to explore. And, maybe there's signs that need to be seen, or I don't know. I don't want to tell people how to live their lives, but if you look at somebody's report of a near death and as soon as they said God or thought about God helping them, they were relieved and forgiven, like that's
Oh, yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
powerful.
I know. So much of what we believe, so many of us believe, uh, is not the experience of what it's like on the other side. And
Mhm.
when I I can see spirits and work with spirits in other realms, and I understood this in my near death experience too, that there's the light and then there's that space right before it where people are hovering because on their soul they are afraid that they're not going to get in. And
Mhm.
I had a couple of shared death experiences, and I would just say, like, go, just keep going, don't stop. You are welcome in the light. um and that's one of the messages, that there's so many souls that are waiting and stuck because they're not thinking that they'll get in. That's really sad.
That's really sad. And I mean, from your experience, do you believe that if we pray to our deceased loved ones and just be like, hey, it's okay, you can go on and be with Jesus or be with grandma or, go find, like, do you believe our prayers can reach that veil of somebody who's sort of stuck and it could make a difference? Or what's your experience on that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The spirit world and you know, they come when they're called. I mean, and
Mhm.
that's one of the greatest things. I mean, I always say that it was the greatest thing I learned. I learned so many things on the other side, but um, you go there to do work. You want to help hear us, and we lose our physical body, but their spirit is so alive and so powerful. They're not going to get in the way of our plan, our soul plan. They're not going to get in the way of our soul plan, but they'll certainly help us through it and be there for us and support us in ways that they can support us and help it and try to make our road easier for us. But when it comes to the death experience, yeah, they're there. I helped a couple people go to the other side, and the hands come down and take them through and
Mhm.
carry them over. And yeah, sure, ask for them to come. Ask for them to
Mhm.
come. If you want somebody there, they're happy to help. They just like to be asked to help too. You know,
Mhm.
um, yeah, but it's that there were so many lessons that I learned, so many lessons that I learned. And one of them was, really believing in ourselves and trusting our source, our God, just trusting life and forgiving life. And um, just,
Mhm.
so many amazing things. But um, I can't wait to see that movie.
I know. I can't wait for you to see it too. I definitely want to talk to you again after
Yeah.
you see it. I have so many questions too. And, and I just, how did you reacclimate? Like, because you mentioned it before, it's like the trauma of being put back in your body after being hugged by Jesus. I mean, after.
I know. People say that, my first near death experience, I like dug a hole in myself and just buried it. Just I am not telling anybody this. But I would like talk to Jesus and Mary, and I'd go to church, and I'd felt so connected, and I knew I was connected at a different level, but I never told anybody. And I really buried the idea of what happened. And that was a totally different experience. I was so traumatized for years after that. Um, but uh, this one, it was the second near death experience when I was in the light longer, and I was learning more about my life and what I needed to do, and I was able to see more. Um, I knew I was there, and I realized that the emotions, that our consciousness, that everything continues, because I was actually sad when I was there. It wasn't like, oh, I was feeling. I wanted to be in his arms. I remember feeling his arms around me. I remember him holding me and looking at me, and I remember wanting to stay right there and knowing I had to come back. And then when I came back, which is so interesting because, I've had cancer and I work with thousands of cancer patients and their families. And um, uh, we see suffering so much before somebody dies. We see them in this physical state where their soul is really leaving their body, and there's this tap of peace and light that's right there before you go to heaven. It's like you start to feel it and you're in it. But I remember when I came back, I was like whispering. I whispered to my sister. She was the first person, and I was like, "Yeah, I saw Jesus last night." And I remember she looked at me, and I was like, no, I really saw him. I saw him. And the it was so much sadness when I came back. When I mean, I had two young babies or young children at the time, and I was happily married, and everything was so great. But I had this experience of life is really, what we really live for.
Mhm.
And I came back, and I couldn't share it without anybody, and I just didn't think anybody was ever going to understand, ever understand. And that's why it's so nice to work with the people in the near death community, because they do, and there's no judgment. And
Mhm.
and even my closest people that have been my closest people all through my life, was really hard to tell people I was in Jesus's arms, and people actually believe it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And there's people that don't, and that's okay. That's okay that they
Yeah.
don't. I do, and I have my messages to share after sitting in his arms.
Hmm. That's how I always tell people, take what serves you and leave what doesn't. I mean, if
Yeah,
it's not your time to hear this, then it's okay. But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
I adore the experience of hearing what you have to say, and just being a platform and this vessel to just get curious, to say, hey, there are different ways to experience this life, and ways to look at it that not even the priests or any religious person, this isn't a religious thing, this is a spirituality thing,
Mhm,
this isn't one religion or another, this is humanity,
mhm,
this gets to why we're here. No one can
mhm,
tell us. We have to experience. I love, and it's an empowered message. It's like you're in charge, like you're making the choices. No one's coming and grabbing you. You have to ask them to grab you.
mhm,
It's like you
mhm.
have to put your hand out, and
Yeah,
what a great message for how to live your life, like believe that you're worthy, that you're divine, and put your hand out, because
yeah.
we always do so much, but doing for others is not enough, because that's
Mm-mm,
not our joy.
mm-mm. It's
So
not.
I
And
hear you.
yep, and I always say, giving from your heart is endless. I could give for days, nights, weeks, years if I'm giving from my heart. But if I'm giving out of guilt and shame, I'm going to give from the energy of my body, and I'm going to get depleted. I'm going to get
Mm.
sick, and I'm going to get tired. But there's I lived a life of service. After my accident, my boyfriend was brain injured, and I spent years at his side, and I spent years working with the brain injured community. And then he was only able to blink his eyes after the accident, nothing else, just blink his eyes for almost 19 years. And then I got cancer, and I started work with the cancer community and built a nonprofit and worked really well with the cancer community. And I just kept always working and being of service for other people. And I was, when I died the second time, I knew I was dying because I just knew, because I'm certain, because I had done it before, and I
Mhm.
knew what was happening. And I told my family, I think I'm dying. Um, but when I went to the other side that time, it was really the mess. I thought, oh yeah, okay, well I'm in. I'm
You're
in
like, I'm
this.
good. I'm
Good.
good.
I
This
did
is
it.
my return ticket. I'm
Did
I'm
it.
good.
Did all the work. No, so I had I'd lived this life of service, and so the second
Mhm.
time I went, and I knew I was going, I was like, you know, I'm in. I worked for this,
You're like, I'm
and
good.
so I was like, here I'm going. I was like, woohoo. And I remember like going in, not like I was cocky, like, yeah, I made it. I'm in the light now, but I thought I was gonna stay, and then when I saw Jesus, I thought he was gonna say, welcome, my daughter Kathleen. And he said, you have more work to do. And I thought, more work? What the heck? I just spent my whole life working for you.
Service, right?
I
Yeah.
love service. But I had to recognize myself, that he put me on this earth for a reason, and I wasn't living my soul purpose. I was too busy living everybody else's and making sure that they stayed in alignment with theirs. I just had to find mine, and I had to do his work. And he's blessed me with spiritual gifts of healing and helping people, but I had to do that. And he tried to remind me the first time, and I didn't listen. And they sure reminded me, and the message got through after the second, because I am going to get in. The third time's going to be a charm for me. It's not going to be a long time. um,
I love it. I love it. And that you're right. That's the work, is when you look at yourself. It's
yeah,
easy to look at someone else and say, "Oh, I'm going to help you. I'm going to," because you're deflecting your
yeah,
pain, you're deflecting any deficiency that you don't want to look at. It's like,
yeah,
and it's easier to get approval from someone else than to tell yourself, "I really rock that out.
yeah,
I'm God's daughter. I'm pretty cool." Because we're not taught to give ourselves credit. We're just
yeah,
not. It's
yeah,
it's not part of the programming. So I
yeah,
mean, if that's one thing I try to instill on my kids or any young people I'm around, is to teach them to be their own advocate, to be their own cheerleader, to acknowledge and know that you're showing up as your best. Even
yeah,
if you miss the mark, you
yeah,
put yourself out there, and that's what matters.
yeah.
Like, God didn't put us here to be perfect.
No, not
He
at
didn't.
all, that's for sure. But he did, put us here to do work and to, uplift humanity, but we can't uplift humanity and help other people unless we've taken care of ourselves. He can't move through a heart that's not pure. He can't move. We have to be able to heal ourselves so that he can work through us, really. And I needed to heal myself. I had to get rid of what I understood as the attachments that keep us low, keep us lower vibe, keep us not able to connect. That's the fear and the anxiety and the shame and the guilt and the feelings of selfless, not loving ourselves and not speaking up for ourselves and not judging ourselves and all these things. I had to really align, get in touch with myself, really, so that I could clear
Yeah.
those things.
Oh, well, you've had a beautiful journey, and like that's what I wanted to ask you is that um, what what did you do first? You had to heal from the sepsis, and then you I guess you just asked the universe to bring you what you needed to heal. Like, what was your next step when you were strong enough to go to your spirituality to start the work? How did you know what to do first?
Well, the first near death experience, I went to the dark night of the soul because I didn't get in, and I just thought I just wasn't a good enough human being, and I was really, really in a dark place for years. And then, after the second near death experience, I I wanted to get into the light, and I thought that I had done enough work, and clearly I wasn't doing what I was called to do in this lifetime or chose to do in this lifetime. And I didn't get the one thing. I came back from my second near death experience with like debilitating PTSD, anxiety, and depression, as do many near death experiencers, because
Mhm.
you've nearly died and you've suffered a trauma. But Jesus and Mary and all the amazing angels and everybody in heaven and my ancestors, nobody gave me a playbook when I came back. They just said you have to go back and you have to do the
Yeah,
work.
that's what I'm
Like,
saying.
what's
Like,
the work? Somebody
what?
please
How
tell
did
me.
you start? Yeah.
What do I have to do? And I realized in a lot of reflection, I was spending a lot of time alone because I was so depressed. And I realized that the only thing I hadn't done was myself. I just
Mm.
never understood or really did myself. And I had to get to know myself. And that was the very beginning. I really hit the floor. I had suicidal ideation. I was, I was seeing a psychiatrist. I was really, really not well. And the first thing I did was I had to figure out myself. I had to get to know myself. And then I spent a lot of time journaling and praying for guidance. And then it led me into the energy healing, the spiritual space where I really learned how to connect and how to heal. And through meditation, journaling, really spending a lot of time in nature, and being of service still. I was really able to heal. Meditation was key. I had always prayed, but meditation was really listening, being able to listen to God and hear the messages of what I was supposed to do. And that's where my guidance came in. That's where the rule book came in. The book of what to do
Mhm.
came in during meditation. So
Perfect, because you purified your heart, you opened
yeah.
it and said,
hmm
what can I learn
Yeah,
here?
that was it.
Mm.
Forgiving myself, forgiving life, forgiving the situations, and letting go, really was helped to open my heart, um, and really understand what it was to experience love and feel the love. And
Mm.
then when you find Jesus or your source or whoever your listener's source is, when you start to feel that source in your body, you're able to feel that love. And yeah, it's pretty powerful.
It is. And you have two boys who are young adults,
Yes, I do.
and you maintained your marriage through all this?
I
And
did. I always say, when I was dying that second time, my kids were young at the time. I think they were, 8 and 10.
Mhm.
They were 3 and 1 when I had breast cancer, but they were 8 and 10 when I had that near death experience. And I was really sick and I was not around for a while. Um, but I remember when I was leaving and that peace, knowing that they were going to be okay, that that everybody when I died was going to be okay, and they would have been, and they would have been. I just knew that they were going to be okay. But they survived it, and my husband was amazing, and he loved me tenderly through all of my all of my stuff,
all
Oh,
those dark nights of the
oh,
soul.
oh, my stuff. Oh, through my cancer, through my bandages, through my drains, through my sicknesses. He was always there. An angel, really. God's
Yeah.
given him to me, and I'm so blessed to have him.
Hmm. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So, you mentioned you saw the saints and you saw family in Jesus. Did you see God? Did you feel God? How, because that's like, it's like source energy. It's like this creative, however it hits you. That's how it's hitting me lately is God is this impetus. It's like this unlimited creative energetic force, and and the God source energy is very strong. But did you get an impression that you were in God's presence, or how did as representatives there?
That's a really good question, because people have said, what's God like? I don't see God, and I didn't see God in that moment, but you feel it. You feel it. You feel it in that moment. And that light is the God force. Like you said, it is a
Okay.
force of, and truly, it's a force of love. It's just the energy of pure love, and it's so powerful. And one of the greatest gifts that I could share with other people is that the power of God in heaven is as accessible to us right here. I don't have to die to experience the relationship with Jesus, or whoever your God is, or your divine feminine, mine's Mary. That's I can feel their presence as close to me today living on this earth as I did in heaven. And they are available to all of us, all of our guides, they're all available to help us, to support us, to be with us. And a great gift of dying was that I realized that I don't have to die to be with them,
Mm.
that I
Yeah,
can.
and your message is that it's not just you, it's everybody,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
everybody.
available.
I'm not any different than anybody else. We're not different from anybody. Everybody has it. And the message is that we are the power. We are the glory. We are it. We are the kingdom of heaven. We are. We are. We hold it within us. And it's just and if people just trusted and said, "Okay, I didn't believe it before, but I'll try it. I'll test it. I'll see it."
What do you got to lose?
I
You
know.
you
I
live a
know.
happier life, you're more present, like what's the downside
Yeah.
of trying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
dipping your feet in the water. And we
Yeah.
just I got to see a Broadway show last night, The Wiz.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
It's the Motown version of Wizard of Oz.
Oh, wow. How
So good.
fun.
It was so good. But and I don't want to ruin the whole show for you, but it goes back to, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and there's a Dorothy in this one too. And the message is, you have the power, you have the magic shoes on. It's you clicking. It's not Oz. It's
Yeah.
not the Wiz.
Yeah.
It's you, and it's that belief that yes, you can.
Yeah.
All you have
Yeah.
to do is ask and click your heels
Yeah.
together 3 times, and
Yeah.
it's right freaking there.
I
So
know.
this is
I
the
know.
same message. It's
Yeah.
just beautiful.
Yeah. 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 There's no veil, really, truly. There's nothing. There's no separation. Um, there's no distance. There's nothing. Yeah. No. But you've really got me into some. Now I got some stuff to do. I got to watch a movie. I got to watch a show.
You need to go to the Broadway show.
I know. I know.
Yes.
I got things to do.
Well, that's what Spirit gave me these tickets because my father-in-law, he passed away in May, but he had bought a series of tickets to the Fox. It's a really great theater, historic theater in Atlanta, and it was part of. He had all these tickets, and who's going to use them? Because you know my husband's brother, they have their own tickets, and Mitch and I usually don't go because we live like an hour away, and it's really hard to get there on a Tuesday night. But but we accepted. We were like, okay, we'll go. We're gonna use these tickets, and it's just been such a blessing. And I sit in the seat and think about Mitch's mom being in the same seat, and
Aw,
and it's just like it's so precious. And I know that they're right there watching the shows with us. So it's like one big circle because we're talking
yeah,
about it's all right there. They're right there. We just can't see them through this meat suit that we have.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
Well, you just start by feeling them, closing
feeling
your
them.
eyes and feeling the presence, and
Hmm.
being like a little kid that doesn't have any limitations, and use your imagination.
Yeah, forget about what you think you know and just
Yeah,
experience what you can.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
this isn't about knowledge. I mean, you can go to people who can help you, but this isn't about reading a book and memorizing each thing. It's
yeah,
about picking up on the energetics of the author. It's about
yeah.
picking up the energetics of the method.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so true, Julie. I have so many people, I'm sure you do too, that come to you and say, can you connect me with somebody? Can you give me are there any messages for me? And I say, I'm no different. You can connect at the same level. You just have to ask and be willing to receive and
and
trust
thank
what
them.
you hear and
Yes, and
think,
also think because they don't want to give something and then be like, "Well, did that
yeah,
help?"
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have to say thank you. I
Thank you, whether you like the answer or not, thank you.
Yes,
You
thank you.
know?
It's
But everyone can
true.
hear it. You've if you ask the question to your deceased grandmother or mother or whoever's in your life and you hear the answer, you
Mhm.
just have to believe you've heard the answer, you know?
Well, I asked for signs. I mean, we were in the house that in Hilton Head where my father-in-law lived, and we couldn't find the furnace in the attic. And I'm like, it's got to be up here. All the vents lead to the attic, and we couldn't find the furnace. We couldn't find it. And finally, I'm like, Neil, can you just give us a clue? We've been looking for hours. I want to get to the beach. I want to go for a bike ride. Like, this is killing me. We're wasting this whole day looking for a furnace. And all of a sudden I look up and there's a filter on the shelf. And I was like, well, it's got to be up in this attic because why would he have a filter right here
Right.
on the shelf? And I'd walked past that filter like 8 times. We'd even gone up in that part of the attic and just said, oh, it can't be here. But it was like across the whole span of the attic. We had to like crawl through the attic to find it. But, you know, I,
He
I
led
was
you
like,
there.
thank you, Neil. Thank you. It's just like,
There I know, we
just
just have to ask. Yeah.
just happens. Just
Yeah.
open yourself up to it.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's
Yeah.
wild. And it's not like a haunting feeling. I don't feel haunted. I saw a ghost in my apartment in Milwaukee. Um and and she was definitely a ghost. Like she was doing her thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't scared, but it's a totally different thing from seeing a ghost versus talking to somebody on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a totally different thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
And
don't
then we
know.
see the ghosts, they may just want help. They just might need a little lift to heaven, They just might
Yeah.
need someone to take them.
Well, that's funny you say that because the ghost I saw was a nun and she was carrying a tray. So she was being in service.
Yeah.
And she didn't look around. She was just floating through my room with her tray, delivering medicine or whatever it was. She was obviously working in a hospital of some sort. And I did find out that is a duplex we rented in college. And it was like a place where people stayed when they were like close to the hospital, but not maybe like a hospice type thing.
Wow. Oh, I got
But
the
yeah,
chills on hospice. Ooh. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So, I mean, she's just doing her thing with her head down, but
yeah.
maybe she got stuck because she did so much service and
Yeah.
never had a puppy.
They just don't think they're going to they just don't think they've done and they've been good enough. It's all about that worth, that you're worthy of
Mm,
the light.
that worth.
Yeah. When I work with clients, I oftentimes see a trail of souls that are just like, yeah, hoping that they can get a ride. And we take them because that's our job is to bring all the souls that we can
Hmm.
to the light.
Are you astro traveling when you're doing that? Or is it just a deep I'm not just, but is it a deep meditation? Like
When I work with somebody in private in my office or something and they're coming for healing work,
oh, okay.
lots of times people have this really heavy energetic weight, or lots of times they're anxious or depressed, or they just have they're so filled with light that they're attracting souls that want to get to the light.
Oh,
and
okay.
they just need help to get to the light. So then we just take them to the light. And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah, it really is powerful. But that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. We have to take people to the light. Lead all the souls we can.
And you wouldn't have found this in yourself if you didn't follow your own divinity. And
No,
look at the gifts that you're reaching another level of service you would have never reached if you hadn't invested in your own heart.
exactly.
Oh,
Exactly. I
sister.
know. I know. It was just a choice. I was at that fork in the road. I was right there. I could have gone one way or the other. And I don't want to come back again and have to live again and figure it out. I want to live my soul purpose, use my gifts on behalf of source.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that, living for the highest good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where you start.
Yeah.
That's what I understand is you just ask God, show me the highest good,
Mhm. Show me the
and
way. Yeah.
it'll happen. Oh, well, you give such inspiration, and I hope that someone listening, if they need a roadmap or they need some, dip their feet in the water, that maybe they'll see the movie. They could pick up one of your books and just
Yeah.
sort of explore. Just let your mind go there, and
Yeah.
there's this community, and nobody who has a near death experience needs to be by themselves anymore. We don't
No.
have to hide. We're beyond that. You will not be labeled as crazy or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
whatever you think you're going
Yeah.
to be labeled.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a gift in it. There's a blessing in it for you. Um, you know.
Well, yes, and share, please, listeners, if this makes you think of somebody, share this episode, sync up with us. Cathy's a great resource, and just know that you can live your life of love. And thanks again for all your insight and love and showing up. It's been a delight.
Oh, it's been so fun. Thank you for having me, Julie. I've loved every minute.
Too.